One minute, everything was fine. Juliane sat comfortably beside her mother in the cabin of Lanza Flight 508, which had just taken off from Lima, heading toward Koepcke. The next, her body was flung into the sky like a rag doll. She was falling, and when she finally hit the ground, barely breathing, she was still alive. But surviving the fall was only the beginning of her nightmare. Juliane was born in Lima, the capital of Peru, to German zoologists Maria and Hans Wilhelm Koepcke. Her childhood was anything but ordinary. Her parents had come to Peru in pursuit of science, but they stayed for the sake of the jungle's future. They didn't just study wildlife, they defended it. They spoke out against deforestation, illegal hunting, and the destruction of a fragile ecosystem in desperate need of protection. And always, by their side, was their daughter, on riverboats, in tents, surrounded by silent trees and the pulse of the nocturnal Amazon. At the age of 14, Juliane's family left the noise of Lima behind and moved deep into the rainforest, founding the Panguana Research Station. While other girls her age were learning to braid hair and falling in love with neighbor boys, Juliane was learning to identify venomous snakes, navigate unmarked terrain, and read the breath of the jungle. Years later, she would say, "I knew from childhood that nothing in the world is truly secure. Even the ground beneath your feet can vanish in an instant." That understanding would one day save her life. But the jungle had no place in standardized education. Despite her rare and practical knowledge, the school system did not recognize it. At 17, she had to return to Lima to take her final exams. She passed them on December 23, 1971. Her mother urged them to leave immediately. But Juliane, who so rarely had a chance to be among people her own age, begged for one more night. She wanted to dance, to see the lights, to feel a bit of youth. Her mother agreed, and so they booked tickets for the next day, Christmas Eve. Lanza Flight 508 was the last flight out to Koepcke that night. The aircraft was a Lockheed L-188 Electra. Hans Koepcke knew the plane well, and he knew it was risky. Out of 170 of these planes ever built, 58 had already crashed or failed. He pleaded with his wife and daughter not to board. But it was Christmas. How could they not be home for Christmas? Juliane and Maria decided to fly. From the very start, something felt off. The flight was delayed by 7 hours. People were irritated and exhausted, but they still boarded, hoping for a quick journey. Just an hour in the air. Juliane took the window seat toward the rear of the aircraft. The rest was silence. Then thunder. A blinding flash tearing through the darkness. A sound as if the sky itself was being ripped apart. And then only the fall. The sky that day looked deceptively calm. Juliane sat beside her mother in the aisle seat, eating a sandwich, everything feeling perfectly ordinary. They had been in the air for 4.5 hours, no sign of trouble. They were nearly at their destination when, without warning, a storm broke loose over the rainforest. Darkness fell, sudden and thick like a curtain of tar. Lightning flashed on all sides, flooding the plane's windows with blinding bursts of white. The very air seemed to hum with electricity. Then came the turbulence, violent and merciless, like a blow to the chest. Overhead compartments burst open, bags rained down, food and drinks flew across the aisle. People screamed, some prayed, others simply shut their eyes, as if that might keep the chaos away. A brilliant flash lit up the wing. Thunder followed almost instantly. Then, a jolt, a brutal one, as if an invisible force had seized the aircraft and yanked it downward. As the plane pitched nose first into the storm, Juliane heard her mother's whisper, soft, almost already from another world. "This is it. It's all over." And then silence. It was as if Juliane had been torn from one reality and thrown into another. She didn't leave the plane. The plane left her. It happened in a heartbeat. The impact, the brake, and then she was ejected, still strapped to her seat, into the open sky. Thousands of feet below, nothing but empty air. Her seatbelt, a strip of steel and fabric, was the only thing tethering her to life. She fell, through clouds, through branches, through consciousness itself. She had time only to glimpse the sea of green below, an endless canopy, and then blacked out. And yet she lived. When Juliane came to, she was lying on the damp, forgiving floor of the jungle, unmoving, still buckled into her seat. Day turned to night and night into day again, and she just lay there listening. The sounds of the rainforest enveloped her. Not menacing, but strangely familiar. Somewhere nearby, frogs croaked, birds called out, insects buzzed and clicked. These were the sounds of her childhood. She had grown up in the tropics of Panguana. That meant she was close to home. She could barely see out of one eye. Her collarbone was broken, her skin torn raw. But considering she had fallen from 10,000 feet, her condition was nearly miraculous. Maybe it was the dense canopy that cushioned her fall. Maybe it was the seatbelt that kept her alive. But survival didn't mean rescue. What lay ahead was a different kind of struggle. Against pain, against solitude, against a jungle that was both sanctuary and snare. This is not just a story of miraculous survival. It's the story of someone who fell from the sky, but refused to surrender to the earth. That morning, as the sun filtered through the rain-soaked leaves and a heavy silence hung over the jungle, Juliane finally managed to free herself from the seat to which she had been strapped, alive. Her fall through the canopy had been broken by the branches, as if nature itself had tried, against all odds, to soften her descent. But survival was only the beginning of her ordeal. She wore a short dress and sandals, an outfit chosen by a 17-year-old girl for a routine flight, not for surviving in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. In those light clothes, she endured the scorching heat by day and the bone-deep chill by night. The rain never stopped. It was the peak of the wet season, the cruelest time to be lost in the jungle. Fruit was nowhere to be found. Fire was impossible to make, and each night felt like an eternity. She had lost one shoe and her glasses in the fall, leaving her nearly blind. The world around her became a smeared green void filled with dangers she could no longer see, especially snakes. Her parents, both biologists, had warned her about them since she was a child. Now, without her glasses, every shadow beneath her feet could mean death. But memory lived inside her, not just of scientific facts, but of instinctive rules learned long ago. The most important one: find a stream and follow it. Water leads to people. She trusted that knowledge, moving step by step, exhausted, bleeding, yet propelled by something deep and bright within her. On the fourth day of following the creek bed, she heard a sound that chilled her to the bone. The deep, heavy wing beats of something massive overhead. A king vulture. These birds don't descend without a reason. They sense death. And Juliane knew they were here because of the bodies. She rounded a bend in the creek and froze. There, face down on the forest floor, lay three figures. It looked as though they had been hurrying somewhere and simply stopped, legs still bent, jutting upward like crooked crosses. They were her fellow passengers. She had never seen a dead body before. She stood motionless,